The gun is good.
The gun is good!
The gun might be good, but how good are the shooting skills in State of Decay 2? That will be the subject of this video. Remember that you can retrain your skills if you obtain a retraining manual from a mysterious trader on the weekends for 1,500 influence. This will allow you to choose from any of the skills, not just the initial skills that your character was allowed to learn. It will unlock all 4 so you can respecialize them to your heart's content, assuming you can get your hands on a manual. As with the previous skill videos, such as the wit skills, which I covered last time, I'm going to take a look at all of the skills. I'm going to run experiments on what they do, and then I'm going to tell you whether or not I think those skills are good enough or if it even makes a difference. So first, let's just name off what the 4 shooting skills are, and they are weapon handling, assault, sharpshooting, and gunslinging. And this is the order that we will be investigating them in. So let's get started with weapon handling. This skill could be considered the default or generic skill because whenever you organically level up a character's shooting, this should always be one of the options no matter what. And here are the bonuses that it confers upon you. Minus 25% firearm recoil, minus 25% firearm sway, minus 25% durability loss per shot, and clear jammed weapons very quickly. Now, there's not a whole lot going on here. Most of these effects are pretty self-explanatory, except for perhaps the clearing of jams. So I went ahead and tested it with my M4X2 Light SSW, which is a rare M4 with a massive 100-round magazine, and in its description it even says that it is prone to jamming. Jamming doesn't happen all that frequently with weapons, but when it does happen, it's going to occur on automatic weapons. So after shooting a whole bunch of bullets out, I eventually did get the weapon to jam, which resembles a broken weapon, which can be confusing. The weapon turns red, and it even says that it's broken, but if you reload it, you'll notice that your character goes through a slightly different reloading action, and suddenly it restores the weapon's functionality. And this is the active feature to the weapon handling. Everything else is passive. Overall, there's really not a whole lot going on here. So what do I think about weapon handling? I consider it to be the lowest value of all of the skills, and the reason for that is because it solves problems that don't really exist in State of Decay. Weapon durability loss isn't too big of a deal because you can get plenty of parts to repair guns. It could come in handy for lengthy missions so you don't have to return as frequently to repair. And most weapons don't jam. And the weapons that do jam, they jam when you go fully automatic. And for the most part, there's not a whole lot of reason to go fully automatic in State of Decay because most zombies die in one hit. And you could go full auto on a Juggernaut, or you could just beat the crap out of it in melee combat, which would save way more ammunition and defeat it in a similar amount of time. So the issue here is that weapon handling, it doesn't solve important problems. So let's just get right into the next skill, which is Assault. Choosing this skill will give you the following benefits. Minus 25% firearm sway, minus 80% firearm recoil, plus 50% firearm knockdown, and the kick. I'm going to refer to this as the Assault kick because it is possible to also just kick enemies in general, and this is specifically the kick from the Assault skill. So we've got 3 things to test here, and let's start with the Assault kick. You can only use this when you are aiming. And when you use this kick, it will knock zombies down. The problem is that it doesn't always work. There appears to be times when the zombies just aren't affected by it, and then there are times where it works as normal. As a result, it's really not all that useful, especially for shooting enemies. I mean, you can kick enemies over and then shoot them, but ironically, it's actually better to just kick them over and then execute them with a melee attack. When I think of Assault, I think of storming a building and kicking multiple zombies away from you so you can blast them with a shotgun, but that's just not how the kick works. I decided for the lulz to try out the Assault kick on a feral, and surprisingly, it didn't work too bad. It wasn't amazing, but it worked. I was able to kick the feral to death. Overall, though, I don't know. I find kick to be just this odd ability that it takes too much effort to use. Next up, though, let's talk about the 50% firearm knockdown. So what this does is when you shoot things, well, it has a better chance of knocking the zombies over. That is the theme of Assault. Crowd controlling zombies by knocking them over. You kick them over, you shoot them over, and that is the name of Assault. The problem with this skill is I don't really want to knock the zombies over. I just want them to be dead. So I tried using this with a revolver later on to see maybe it's more of an advantage with single fire weapons to crowd control the enemies so you can pick them off or buy yourself time to reload. But honestly, against a large amount of zombies, I just want to shoot them in the head or drive them over with a car. I don't really want to knock them down. I just want them to be dead. In fact, all it did was make me wonder, why am I not just beating the crap out of them with my blunt weapon? If you saw my explanation of the 3 weapon specializations, you would have seen how effective it is to beat up large quantities of zombies with a blunt weapon. So to me, it felt like shooting them to knock them over was just a waste. If I want to shoot them, I just want them to be dead, not knocked over. Lastly came the minus 80% firearm recoil test, and I brought out the B50FG, a fully automatic 50 caliber rifle, because that weapon has a huge amount of kick. You can see here in the comparison that the character that does not have Assault has massive recoil when firing all 5 rounds, while the character that does have Assault still suffers from some recoil, but I mean, come on, it's the B50FG. Yet it still demonstrates that it does effectively reduce the recoil of weapons. To be honest though, that doesn't really affect me too much because I don't use a lot of high recoil weapons, and when I do use the B50FG, it's against juggernauts, and I'm not worried about missing against jugs. Overall, my judgment of Assault is that it's kind of a meh, average kind of skill. It's not bad, but it's not great. I would pick it over weapon handling, but I wouldn't pick it over the other 2 skills. Speaking of which, let's move into the Sharpshooting skill, our 3rd skill. Sharpshooting will confer the following benefits upon you: minus 25% firearm recoil, plus 50% firearm dismemberment, minus 80% firearm sway, and all bullets pierce through enemies. Time for more testing. First up is the piercing and dismemberment test. I'm using the DevGru X12 Infiltrator here, a fully automatic shotgun. I was actually using that in the Assault test as well. What this feature does is cause any type of bullet to pass through multiple zombies, and the reason I chose a shotgun here is because all of the pellets can pass through the zombies, resulting in multiple kills, multiple knockdowns, and maiming zombies with the additional dismemberment bonuses. Now, the reason why I like this more than just the knockdown bonus of Assault is because this allows you to kill more zombies. You could potentially score multiple headshots with the pass-through effect. And then there is the bonus that the zombies have a much higher chance of being ripped apart, so they lose some of their abilities if you destroy their arms. They can lose mobility if you destroy their legs. And any knockdowns that occur are a bonus, but the primary feature is that you can kill more zombies. Another thing that's nice about this skill is that it gets better as the game gets harder. When the zombies increase in density, where hordes go from like 4 to 12, then this is going to get better. It scales very well. Because the larger the density of zombies, the easier it is to pierce through multiple zombies and get value out of the skill. But let's move on to the sway test. We have that minus 80% firearm sway, and I was thinking, what weapon is going to have a lot of sway? And I came up with the Precision G17. This is a pistol that can zoom in, and because it doesn't have the stability of a rifle, it does sway around quite a bit when you zoom in. So just like the Assault recoil test, I have the 2 characters using the weapon, and you can see that there is a difference, but it's not nearly as dramatic as the Assault weapon recoil test. But I could still tell that the sway of the crosshair wasn't as severe with the character that did have sharpshooting. I will say that the sway reduction doesn't really have great synergy with the punch through, and the reason for that is because you're probably going to be sniping a zombie at a long range. and it's very unlikely that you're going to have this great lineup of shots where you punch through at long range, through a zombie's head, through another zombie's head. Which is why, ironically, the sharpshooter skill, which implies the usage of sniper rifles, is actually better with a shotgun, where it is much easier to take advantage of the punch-through effect. But if you're a sniper, certainly, the reduction in the crosshair sway will definitely help out. Overall, I think Sharpshooter is a pretty good skill. It's a great crowd suppression weapon, especially if you've got a decent shotgun. It really shreds through the hordes, especially in a building where they're confined into these larger clumps. So I definitely find this to be a pretty worthy skill to invest in. Certainly a contender as a general pick for the shooting skills. But now it's time for the final skill, Gunslinging. Choosing this gives you the following benefits: minus 25% firearm sway, minus 25% firearm recoil, plus 200% reload speed, and you get the aim snap ability. We got 2 tests to do here. First, let's talk about the ability Aim Snap. This basically lets you pay stamina to get aimbot, where you automatically lock onto a zombie's head and hold that lock for a brief amount of time. It's not 100% accurate, and it can have a problem if the enemy is really close to you, but in pretty much every other situation, this is an instant headshot. As long as you see a horde approaching you, you can rapidly dismantle them with a series of snapshots. Just keep in mind that it does use up your stamina, so investing in a larger stamina pool and holding on to stamina restoration items like snacks can help a lot here. It also works pretty well against ferals as long as they're not right on top of you. If they're coming at you and you can lock onto them, bam, they're just dead. If they do get on top of you though, you'll have to create a little bit of space before you can lock on and get a reliable headshot kill. But it absolutely will work on ferals. Finally, let's take a look at the plus 200% reload speed bonus, and I have a few weapons to try out here. First up is the SP-101 Devilit 22 caliber, a revolver. Revolvers are famous for having a sluggish reloading speed due to having to manually reload the cylinder. And you can see here that gunslinging rapidly reloads and gets you back in the fight pretty efficiently. Next, we've got the Model 870, a very common shotgun that you have to feed the shells into manually. It's not magazine fed, and that takes a long time to reload. You'll see that there is a notable increase in the reload speed when you're using gunslinging. Next up is the Kodiak XL, a shotgun with a drum magazine. And if you've ever used a weapon with a drum magazine, then you know that they take forever to reload. Your character just cannot get the drum in the weapon. But here is where gunslinging is incredible. Look how fast gunslinging reloads the Kodiak. A gigantic improvement. Now we've got the Echo X2 sniper crossbow. Crossbows, except for the Echo X3 repeating crossbow, are famous for their sluggish reload speeds, and you're going to find that gunslinging helps a bit. It's still fairly slow, but it does help. And lastly, I chose the Prepper's 1022, another rifle with an extended magazine, also a fairly common extended magazine weapon that you probably have. And you'll see that the same problem exists. It takes forever to get the magazine in the rifle, but with gunslinging, it actually reloads faster than weapons that don't have reloading problems. Overall, gunslinging is really good. The snapshot is useful in specific situations, but the reloading is really where the weapon is at. And because the reloading is useful in pretty much all situations, it makes gunslinging very strong as a general choice in the shooting skill category. All right, though, it's time to recap and pronounce which of the skills are the best. Weapon handling is the weakest of the skills, and I don't advise choosing it because it doesn't fix problems that you need to be worried about. You can get plenty of weapons to repair your guns, and you're not going to experience weapon jams very often unless you're just going fully automatic all the time, and you shouldn't be going fully automatic all the time unless you're just having fun. Assault is kind of the weird choice. I would still choose it over weapon handling, but I don't think it really does its job extremely well because I don't want to knock zombies over. I just want them to be dead. Sharpshooting, I think, is one of the better skills because it scales very well with the game if Undead Labs chooses to increase the density of the zombies. The greater the zombie population, the better sharpshooting will get because it just means more targets to shoot through and rip apart with the punch through and dismemberment bonuses. But my choice for the best skill is gunslinging. Gunslinging just makes weapons feel so much better, and there might very well be weapons that you want to like, but you just can't stand the sluggish reload times, and gunslinging will breathe new life into those weapons. And even the weapons that already have a decent reloading time, gunslinging basically makes them instant. The aim snap is useful, especially against charging ferals. I don't use it too frequently, but that doesn't mean it isn't useful. But without a doubt, the ability to just reload weapons so quickly is what makes gunslinging such a compelling choice. But hey, that is that. If you don't agree with this listing, give me your counter list for the weapons, and where yours differs from mine, let me know why. Like this video if it was informative or gave you a different perspective on skills perhaps you didn't approve of. Subscribe to my channel for future State K2 content, and of course remember that you don't have to be good to get good.